It was one of the most daring and audacious military operations in modern history. It depended on speed and patience, secrecy and deception, strategic precision, and not a little luck. I speak of the now renowned raid on Entebbe, codenamed Operation Thunderbolt. And on July 4th of 1976, Israeli commandos departed Sharm el-Sheikh and flew over the Red Sea, below 100 feet, to evade the radar of Egyptian, Saudi Arabian, and Sudanese armies, headed toward Entebbe airport to rescue 102 hostages held by terrorists abetted by Idi Amin. And though some lives were tragically lost, both military and civilian, the mission was so successful, bordering on the incredible, that it inspired a whole series of dramatizations, including most famously a 1977 film called Raid on Entebbe, starring Charles Bronson, Yaphet Kotto, and James Wood. And one scene in particular in that movie struck me as a child and has stuck with me to this day for its poignancy and its pathos. As the military planes fly through the night on the way to attempt this untried and untested raid with little time to train and no contingency plan in place, the soldiers play games to pass the time. And then, without any particular prompt, a song breaks out, and soon the whole cabin is singing words from the Psalms. Hine ma tov u'ma-na'im. How good, how gratifying. Shevet achim gam yachad is it for brothers to live together. And those words, put to so many different melodies, are not only meaningful in a vacuum, giving voice to the love of family, but they arise against the backdrop of biblical history where brothers did not always live in peace. From Cain and Abel to Esau and Jacob, sibling rivalry seems to have been the norm. Though we speak of fraternity as a sacred and unbreakable bond, brothers by nature compete and vie for primacy. In fact, René Girard, in his seminal work on religious sacrifice called Violence and the Sacred, sees sibling conflict at the root of all, not only civil war, which is what makes two figures in Jewish history so exceptional, figures to whom Arnold Schoenberg devoted an opera, Moses and Aaron. As brothers, they relentlessly defend and defer to each other. They speak up for and support each other. They rally a nation and lead a people hand in hand together with their sister. Which leads us to what seems to be a rather odd exchange between these two brothers that we read in Shul this morning. With all its gold and its fabrics, the tabernacle has been built and awaits consecration. For 7 days straight, Moshe dedicated the sacred space with the performance of sacral rites, the warming of precise spices, the offering of sacrifices. He forged a model of paradise. And on the 8th day, B'Yom HaShmini, he transferred all that priestly power to his brother with a single instruction. Kach lacha egel ben bakar lachatat. Take for yourself a calf of the herd for a sin offering. Va'ayil le'olah, and a ram for a burnt offering. Crave lifnei Hashem, and sacrifice before God. But then Moshe says again, Krav el hamizbeach, draw near to the altar. Va'aseh chatatcha v'olatecha, perform your sin and burnt offerings. And this is our question. Why, after issuing a clear, unambiguous, unequivocal instruction, does Moshe repeat it? Having told his brother to pick 2 animals and bring them before God, why does he feel the need to reiterate his appeal and say, Krav el hamizbeach, come close, draw near, approach the mizbeach? And there is one answer that I'd like to share with you today, which takes us deep into Aaron's psyche, and it can be found in the commentary of the Malbim. For him, despite his divine appointment, despite his ritual anointment, Aaron fails to accede to the position of high priest as he wavers and resists his Mosaic brief for 2 completely different reasons. In the Malbim's words, Hayanasug achor mishnei panim, he recoiled for 2 reasons. First, while Moshe grew up as a prince in the palace and married the daughter of a tribal high priest, Aaron had spent his life in captivity under the watch and the whims and the whips of his superiors. He was born into a world of pain, surrounded by indigent slaves at the very bottom of the food chain, and never imagined himself overseeing the world's most sacred space. So standing now as a high priest of God's chosen people, he was, in Malbim's words, Bosh migdulat hamelech hakavod, overwhelmed by God's greatness. Being asked to take up this vital charge was more than he could begin to reasonably grasp, so he entered a state of tentative paralysis as his body seethed beneath a blanket of awe. And second, beyond this debilitating intimidation, Aaron's mind was blinded by the memory of sin. It was not too long ago that in the wake of their emancipation, he helped orchestrate our nation's betrayal of God with the worship of a golden cow. And now, once more, in the words of the Malbim, Surat Hashur, Lenegdo Tamid, the image of a bull was before him always, everywhere that he looked. No matter where he turned, the form of a golden calf haunted him. Like the blood that clung to Lady Macbeth's guilt-ridden hands, the image of the eagle was branded on Aaron's eyes, superimposing on every sight a reminder of his horrifying crime. One commentator even suggests that Nirelo HaMizbeach, Kakarne Hashar, the very corners of the altar, reminded him of the horns of the eagle. And this is why, for the Malbim, Moshe needed to repeat his appeal to Aaron for him to proceed. That is why Moshe needed to bolster his brother and reassure him that he was indeed God's choice to be the high priest. That is why, despite having told Aaron to advance, he restated, Krav el HaMizbeach, come, draw near, approach the altar. Moshe's repetition aimed to give his brother confidence and conviction, to give him peace of mind that the fresh memories of slavery and sin would dissolve over time, and that his capacity to serve God and the nation in the Mishkan was not compromised. And in the spirit of Moshe's sensitivity and generosity and inclusivity, every time that we, to this day, call a Kohen to the Torah, we use this phrase, Kohen Krav, priest, draw near, approach, come, Krav el HaMizbeach. We all carry our own inferiorities and memories of misdeeds that could lead us to freeze or seize up in the face of responsibility. We may say, who are we to take a stand or promote a cause when we are so stained by sin and peppered with flaws? Who are we to advocate sacrifice when we have been so narcissistic? Who are we to preach integrity when we have been an embodiment of such hypocrisy? Who are we to moralize when our lives are so bristling with compromise? Which is why Moshe inspired his brother to stand and rise and take his place as a high priest at the helm of the nation, so that he could serve as an exemplar to the rest of us, that we and anybody who has sinned can still serve. Hinei ma tov u'ma na'im shevet achim gam yachad. How good, how gratifying, how wondrous is it for brothers to live together. And just as Aaron supported Moshe through his encounter with Pharaoh, Moshe supported Aaron with his encounter before God. May we all find fraternity in our life of service, and may we all thrive and find our purpose. I wish you all a Shavua Tov.